All right, so from one arena to another, from one big project, if you will, to another, right? Let us, as in myself and Ricardo, finally talk about Megalopolis, right? Because our colleague CC, who was fortunate enough to see it in theaters, yeah, they covered it before, right? They absolutely loved the film and pretty much warned us of what to expect from it, right? So we will try to review this. We'll try to we will give our honest opinions on the show itself, right? So all right, so Ricardo, if you don't mind, I will try to do this, right? I'll try to review. I'll try to give a synopsis of this. I'll keep it short as I'll try, right? But yeah, so this is pretty much our alternate New York, right? But you know what the writer, producer, and director Francis Ford Coppola, you know, the legend, the OG, who made some of the greatest films of all time. You know, the Godfather series, you know, even the third one, which, you know, the recut that he released just the other day, what you call the Godfather Coda, which I absolutely love, you know, compared to the Godfather Part 3, right?
Right.
There was, you know, Apocalypse Now, there's Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, all of those except for the Godfather Coda. I actually own all those on Blu-ray at the moment, right? You know? So yeah, I mean, Coppola is a man that I put on high regard, right? Even though I have not seen all of his films, right? But you know, when it comes to this film, right, you know, and as CC stated, right, you know, this was a project that he was just trying to get off the ground, I believe, from since the 90s, if either 80s or 90s, right?
Yeah. Since the 80s, pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, he had to self-finance this, right, through his American Zoetrope studio, right? Well, production company, basically, right? I believe, well, you know, a lot of people see this like he sell part of his vineyards, you know what I mean, in order to raise the money to do this, right? And yeah, you know, when it came to like just distributing it, Lionsgate, you know, clearly didn't know how to do it, right? Because yeah, there was that god awful trailer that they pull, you know, like less than a day than when he released it because of all the false, you know, critiques of his previous films and all that kind of stuff, you know? Yeah. But onto the show itself, right? So yes, you know, this is not New York City, right? But it's called New Rome, right? And it's meant to, you know, reflect, you know, the fall of the Roman Empire, right? So you will see characters with, you know, Roman names, like, so like the lead is called Caesar, Catalina. His rival is Cicero, Franklin Cicero, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, when it comes to Caesar now, he is this architect, right? He works in this company called the Design Authority. So basically that involves just, you know, getting rid of old buildings and just, you know, making these grander buildings and just architecture, all that kind of stuff, right? But then you learn just right from the gate, from the first, you know, scene in the film, he also have the ability to stop time, right? He just says time stop and it stops, right? And it's never said, it's never clear, it's never really stated how he's able to do that, but he could just do that, right? And then later on you learn he could actually see into the future as well. So he sees the potential of what he wants to do, which is basically create this society, like this brand new society, like a new city, if you will, called Megalopolis. But you know, the people of New Rome not feeling that at all, because like, you know, we're trying to hold on to our jobs, or we don't have any jobs, and you know, we have this guy who want to do this passion project, yes, which is, if when you really think about it, is meant to evoke, is meant to represent, you know, Coppola in the process of making this film, right? So that's it, right? The mayor of New Rome is Franklin Cicero, who is played by Giancarlo Esposito. He's like all against him, and there was this issue involving Caesar and the death of his wife, and you know, he was like hammering, trying to bring him down because he accused Caesar of murdering his own wife and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Franklin's daughter Julia, who is played by McGill, Natalie Emmanuel, she eventually falls for Caesar, right? And you know, they hit it off and they become a couple and whatnot, right? And she learns about how he sees the world, and you know, she kind of, you know, like they kind of learn from each other when it comes to art and history and all that kind of stuff, right? But while all this is going on now, we have Wow Platinum, who is played by McGill Aubrey Plaza, right? Who is this, you know, this TV show host, and you know, she just wanted to write. She just wanted to kind of scheme her way into wealth, right? So she does that by marrying Caesar's uncle, right, Hamilton, who is played by John Voight, right? And while all this is going on now, we have Caesar's cousin Claudio, or Claudio, sorry, who is played by Shia LaBeouf, which, swear to God, I didn't even recognize that man until he loses his disguise. That's all I'll say without spoiling anything. Yeah, I didn't even know it was him. Like, I just watched it. It's like, I feel like I know this guy from somewhere. I was like, oh shit, it was him. What? I knew he was in the film. I just didn't know he was playing, right? But yeah, you know, he eventually hatches his plan to try to bring down Caesar. And what follows is just Caesar trying to get this project off the ground, but there's just all these weird, surreal things that's going on in the city and in Caesar's life and all that kind of stuff. But it all centers around the establishment of this mega city that is supposed to represent change, right? And not, you know, growth, basically, right? You know, compared to the disorder in the world. Well, I should say the disorder that he sees, you know, around him, right? And I'll stop there. So, I tried my best to keep it spoiler free with that synopsis. But yeah, Ricardo, honest thoughts on Megalopolis, right?
This is the definition of feeling conflict, because never in a while, never have I hated a movie this much, but also appreciated its existence this much. Like the last movie that feel like this for me was Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
Oh, okay. I thought you would have said something like Killing of a Sacred Day or something like that. You know, I didn't know you was going to go.
Like, Killing of a Sacred Day is still a good film. I just don't get it. But it's a film. I get it. This is something I totally understand what's happening. It's just so badly executed and badly done. But at the same time, it is a movie that needs to exist. And by its own existence, it justifies its own existence. Like, you know, it has to do that, and it's only somebody like Coppola could get away with something like this. And just judging it on its own, it's pretty bad. Like this, like to be clear, this is probably going to make worst of the year for me, right? As in, you know, it's one of the worst films I've watched in a long time in terms of its execution. Like it has some really good shots. It has some really good shots and good moments, and then it'll just immediately cut to like this terrible like blue screen scene or something like that.
Yeah. The visuals are very inconsistent in this one. Yeah,
terrible. And it does feel like a person who, you know what it feels like? It is a weird comparison, but it feels like watching Tucker Carlson like operate. Like if you know who that is, right? Tucker Carlson is this very popular right-wing guy, and the second he got kicked off of Fox, like his whole career is like imploded completely. Even though he hasn't changed as a person or anything like that, and there's just because he's such an instrument in the machine system, and it is such like a weird repudiation of authoritarian in a sense, because it just feels like this completely unfinished first draft of a project that he wanted to get done, and if the studio backed him, he would have probably get a masterpiece. But because the studio didn't back him, it don't work at all. And that's how weird this is. It's so weird to watch the spell broken in terms of like filmmaking and a film person. And it's like if this was anybody else, I'd probably like just say, okay, this is some trash movie I'd never watch, right? It's like, you know, somebody would have tell me, hey, I see Megalopolis. Like, oh, that kind of weird trash movie I didn't watch. Okay, but because it's Coppola, and Coppola putting out something like this, it is just interesting to see such a strange debunking of the system or the industry in a weird way. Like just a total demystification of it. So that's why I feel like I don't hate it. Like it just I hate it, but I do like I appreciate why it exists, because it's just such a nice clearing of like, okay, this is how art is. Unfortunately, art has to be like this, and if you don't have the backing of the system or you're backing of a studio, you're gonna just put out this, because it just feel like watching a Neil Breen movie at times. And
oh shit! Oh, Neil Breen, like I didn't think you would bring him up, boy. Wow.
Yeah, no, it feel like that at times. Like it just feel like, wow, this is such a baffling like the way how characters reading the lines and putting out their performances, and he himself, like Coppola himself, because I think he had to sell a couple of vineyards just to get this done.
Yeah, like I said, yeah.
It totally like just is a real humbling thing for a person like to make something like this. But he still decided to make it. Like clearly, he cared about this fucking thing so much that he had to finish this project that not saying anything interesting, and I get what he tried to say though, but it didn't, because it's not executed. It's executed so badly. It not saying anything particularly interesting, like why he tried to go further. And I can see a bunch of people defending this, you know, going to the future, because it's one of those movies that has that strange artifact of it. And I was wrong about what I thought it was. It kind of is the opposite of that if you actually think about it, which is the whole Ayn Rand thing. Like, yeah, it's kind of doing that, but like, no, in terms of like what this main character is about, they do go into that, and it's such a bizarre movie, dude. And it have a lot of movies like this, like historically. Like I think this fellow going to do a video about it coming up, because he did a movie that reminiscent of this recently. What was his man name? Bob Chipman.
Oh, movie Bob. Yeah. Well, in his Gladiator 2 review, he did say, people was asking, where's the Megalopolis review? But he say, they coming. He gonna do like a video essay or something like that.
He did this strange cowboy movie. And a weird cowboy movie, and it's kind of like that, where it's clearly a bunch of it's clearly a lot of love went into this, but because it's so aimless, and because the idea is it's like another person I'll probably bring up is like somebody like Alejandro Jodorowsky, where I don't think so to be clear, I like Alejandro Jodorowsky, but I only like him because of his artistic freedom. I don't think he's that talented of a filmmaker, to be honest, right? And Coppola is a talented filmmaker. But because Coppola is so obsessed with the artistic freedom of putting out the story, and well, at his age, and as CC put it, he have no fucks to give anymore. He just put out this weird nonsense piece of pop culture artifact, and it's such a product of the times. Because on the one end, he's talking about the decay and downfall of society, and well, it's supposed to be modern society, but also Rome. But nothing emblematic of the modern downfall of the industry than this movie. Like if you think about like how he as a person can't really get a thing done, and because how most movies is Marvel projects or whatever it is, and we can talk about like all the problems in the industry right now and so on and so forth. This is emblematic of that. That's what I was saying. It is such a strange meta project in that sense, and I understand why CC might love it because it is very strange and it does a lot of weird shit. But none of it is anywhere near as executed as what it's supposed to try to be doing. Like this nowhere near as good as something like say Caligula or something like that. No way. But it's the product of its time now. Like it's representative of the zeitgeist that I have to say after I can't knock it in that sense. But to be clear, this most likely gonna get worse film of the year for me. Like it's so bad. Like in terms of the execution, I just watching it with just my jaw drop in terms of what they're trying to do on scene. And yeah, that's how I feel about it. Like, yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, I actually have to commend you for bringing up Caligula, right? And it's funny that this movie would drop this year, right? Because just the other day, a few months ago, the ultimate cut of Caligula actually came out. I actually checked it out, right? Okay. And it's actually really, really good though, compared to the original version, which is fucking terrible in my opinion, right there.
Right.
Just talk about a concept just going off the rails and just being so pretentious and just getting swept up in, it needs to be about hardcore sex and violence, all that kind of stuff, instead of missing it is about the rise and fall of this mad emperor, right, or whatever it is, right? But yeah, similar to that, yes, because Megalopolis, I think, draws from that movie, right, to be honest, right? And I saw that with in particular with Shia LaBeouf's character, with Claudio, and a few of the I think it's his relatives or something like that, like his sisters or something like that. Now, cause this kind of running gag going on, like, you're like you're sleeping with your sisters or whatnot, some kind of weird thing, right?
Yeah, that kind of implied incest with them.
Yeah. And I was thinking, that
was in this.
Sorry. Yeah, I was like, hey, Chloe Fineman McGill, I really like she, right, in there still. Right. I was like, hey, you in this too, right? Yeah, so that but why I compare that to Caligula is the whole debauchery of it all, right? It's tapping into that element, because that's what Caligula really tapped into. That's the debauchery of, Rome back in that era, right? And, alright, so, for me, right, you say you put this in your worst stuff, right? For me, I will put this... I would have imagined you would have put it there, but I will put it in mine, if you will. Noble Failures, boy. Like, I see I see what this man, I see what Francis was going for with it. I see what he was trying to do, but I think ultimately, I know he really believed in this thing so much, and you have to commend him for holding on to this idea for years, right? But that in itself is something that is something I'm not really 100% with, right? Because I mean, you and I, right? We have creative ideas, and we kind of hold on to them, and we, over the years we kind of go back to them and think about them and say, okay, maybe now is the time we could kind of execute it or just translate it into another medium. Or at least in my case, how I think is like, oh, maybe I don't have the money to make some big sci-fi epic, but how about I just turn it into like a comic book or something like that, right? Something like that,
Right.
man, in a sense, right?
That is what's so frustrating about this. It really felt like watching it's one of those things that clearly, that was it. I from an artistic standpoint, I do appreciate it because it really felt like like the energy or at least the gumption of a film student, like a first year film student, just putting out a bunch of shit. I guess it's like if you give a film student, a year one film student, like how much, I forget how much it cost, like 210 million or whatever it was.
Yeah, about 120 million.
Right. And so it really felt like that. Like the energy is there, the confidence of making this nonsense is there. But holy shit, like everything else just don't work and don't gel together, and aimless nonsense don't work. It don't work at all.
Agreed.
Like,
Yeah.
Like,
I felt that same way watching it too, right? But
I just watching it. I remember watching the scene like, when it already like sort of come like look bad is when, so it have the scene where oh gosh, he introduced himself when they was hanging in above the buildings, and it was like they started up in this hanging thing and they clashing with each other. We call it John Carlos' character who clashed for the first time, and he get close to his ear to whisper something, but it's something like the worst EDR. And it like, and I listened to this and I'm like, wait, what? They changed the song? What the fuck going on here?
Okay, I thought you were going to mention, well, the moment that a lot of people will quote from this. Yeah, Adam Driver doing the whole Hamlet thing, just out of the blue, to be or not to be, in a real kind of, he trying to be sarcastic, but it just it just come off more laughable and more cringe than anything else.
All of that is the usual pretentious bullshit. Like you have a character quote Hamlet and he talking all that. No, all that is still within the framework of normalcy of filmmaking. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, this is where I talk about the Neil Breen moments, where it just felt like he whispered in his ear, and it's sounding strange. And like, is this an ADR? Like, why is it sounding like this? And with the artistic choice here, it's supposed to be like this. It's just so bizarre though. I did like another scene where again, it really feel like some real film student thing, where, this when Natalie Manuel comes to his office and she was in disguise, or whatever it is, and he talking. And I forget what's the name of the book, but he pulled out a book, and I forget the name of the book, but it's a popular book. And,
I don't remember the title neither. I literally saw the film yesterday, but I don't remember the title.
It's slipping my mind. They put the book in focus for like a second,
and
then put it out of focus. And like, why would you do that? Like, you're telling something about him as a person. What's going on here? Like, it's stuff like that. These are little small things that just like is a total like pretentious film crap that I absolutely hate. And he should know better. But it's the sheer raw confidence of the whole thing that just make it kind of shameless now.
Yeah,
it's stuff like that.
I understand what I mean. Like for that moment with the book, like you think you would have it in focus just for a few more seconds. Like if you want to bring it to the audience attention, at least show it a little bit more. But not like, if you watch closely, almost like if I have to go and watch Mojo and say, in this shot, the name of the book, like, no, nobody cares, nobody wanna know.
And it's not like the framing particularly brilliant or interesting or anything like that. It's like, okay, well, fine. Like,
So
point. But the framing not great. It's a long take,
Yes, which look, like I was admiring the long take. I was admiring the performances. Like, okay, you're doing a long take there, and I feel like the whole scene could have played out like that. But then halfway, when Natalie actually goes to the other side of the room, it just sort of stops. So I was like, you know what I mean? For me, the main problem I had with this film, Dread, and I think this is why this movie came out the way it was, right? Is that yes, I understand that Francis believed in this thing so much, but he held on to this for decades, right? But going back, good thing that you bring up on Hodorowski, right? Because I know that he also
right. So I don't find it. Siddhartha Herman Hesse.
Okay, that's a book. That's a book, right?
That's a book.
Okay.
That's a book.
Yeah. So when Dune came out, right? We talk about Hodorowski's Dune, right? This massive film that Alejandro wanted to do, but he didn't have the money at the time, right? So that that was just like this.
Well, the studio shut it down. I don't think he would have. Well, to be fair, he'd have probably made the attempt if he had the cash to do it on his own.
Right.
And he's another person who could raise the money. He was very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Like, so he's that kind of guy. He could raise his own money to make the movie. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean that's why Holy Mountain looked the way it did. Like that shit costs a lot of money if you look at it, right?
Right.
But the point again is that, and he also have his own comic book. He does. Well, I believe so.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of him. Again, he come from a wealthy family. He make about not as much, he about the same amount of money. I don't know how much wealth he have now, but like, yeah, back in the days he was pretty wealthy.
Right.
But the whole point is that even if you finance your own shit, it still look like shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
You need
So
a
so
studio system.
yeah. So the point
Yeah.
again that is right. So even if Francis did not want to, how to say, didn't want to take his Megalopolis project, right, and just present it in another medium, right? Like a series, or like a graphic novel, just somewhere where, okay, I'm not getting that studio back in. Okay, let me just put it out there, so I can move on to other projects, right? Instead of just waiting till I reach 85 to do this thing, right? Which is what he did, right? Like if it was me, right? I would have found a way. Like if I just couldn't get these ideas to gel properly, because it's clear that, this is why this film never got off the ground, because it just felt so scattershot now, like people just didn't
Right.
understand what he was saying, right? So I could have just, like, if I was in his shoes, right, this is just me Monday morning quarterbacking, right? I could have just said, okay, y'all don't get, all right, let me see if I can adapt it in another way, right? Like a comic book or something, right? And then I just put it out, and you like it, you don't like it, or whatever, and then, you move on to something else, right? But you held on to this thing for so long and believe deep down that you need to put it out, right? You put it out, right? And I mean, at this point in time, I mean, given how it looks, should you be surprised if people find it to be pretentious? No, of course not, right? But for me, my main issue I have with this, right? I felt this is what could make this film better, right? Better. If somebody sat with him and just hammer out the details and just flesh out that story and the script very well.
Listen, there's a problem with him. That was you have no fucks to give.
Yeah.
This is what I say. This is result. As I said, I appreciate. Yeah, appreciate because it is we can give you a clear head. You know who have a similar problem to this? Ralph Bakshi. Where
Okay, tell me how. All right, so I'm not familiar with his guy. I only know like
No.
his work from the 70s, like Coonskin and oh gosh, Heavy Traffic, Fritzy Cat. But I don't know about his other films after, like, say, Wizards, for example. I don't know. Well, I haven't seen his stuff in the 80s, but yeah.
No, that's the thing. Listen, what make it frustrating is that when you go against the studio system, we can hate the studio how much you want. Studios suck, producers suck. We get that, but they have a purpose. For lack of a better term, they have a purpose. The term, I hate using the term necessary evil, but it's one of those examples of that where this you have to like listen to them and cater to them, and they'll cut here, slice here, tell you no, tell you yes, tell you no more than times. And when you have a person who's just their own project and you don't have an editor or somebody to produce, you just get a weird fucking mess like this. This is exactly what has been the brain of most film people. Very few film people just have a clear image of what they want, right? Very few people, and maybe your Tarantinos or somebody like that, where they have a clear idea and from start to finish. So you don't really need the studio to tell them no or yes for something. But sorry to say it, but a lot of these guys is just like this crash out artists. That's the problem. And this is like one of the most crash out projects I could watch in a long time, right? As I said, I love watching this because it's one of the rare examples you'll get to see something like this come to its light, right?
Agreed.
And only somebody like Coppola who has for lack of a better term, the social capital, right? We have a massively great reputation. Not all great, but he has a great reputation amongst most of us. For him to get away with something like this, to see it, because you want to see it otherwise. It's only somebody who will have to like do a lot of digging and figure out and kind of speculate on what we're gonna get. No, you get to see it as the project, right? One like you're not gonna edit this or try to cobble it together to make it a smarter film or chop it down because it's too long or no. This is the raw as you're gonna get, like, image wise, in terms of the project and the final thing. This is the intention, right? This is the intention, and it's not gonna be at the expense of like a project that we like or care about, like say what Batman v Superman was, something like that, right? And so that's why this whole thing was, again, I hate this movie. It's terrible. But I'm glad this movie exists. And that's how I feel about it. So yeah, I sorry to say that I apologize for not actually talking about the movie itself. It have nothing to talk about.
All right. Well, yeah,
a mess.
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't want to spoil anything really. To be honest, I'll just probably mention a couple things basically, right? But before I get to more problems I have with the show, right? So to get the good out of the way, right? I mean, it's for better or for worse, right? But the good is, right. At least the actors who are there, they commit to the rules. It's not like all of them were just pretty much being put out there to embarrass themselves. And I see this too because, some actors are just so audacious and over the top with their performances. Two in particular being Aubrey Plaza and Shia LaBeouf. And it's so funny that, both of them have a scene together, a really like uncomfortable sex scene together, but, they just go off the wall with this way.
Is John Voight, I think?
Well, all right, so you wouldn't spoil that, right? But yeah, John Voight have a moment that was just pure cringe. But I'll lead, that will lead to the problems I have with the show, right? But everybody.
Who was the bow and arrow? That's all I'll say.
All right, the guy with the bow and arrow was John Voight. That was him. Right.
Yeah. Because I was watching his face and I couldn't pin it down against that looking like John Voight, but not really.
Yeah. Well, and yes, as you said on the technical side of things, right? There are moments, right? There are visual moments that look so. There's moments of visual splendor. I'll give you that, right?
Okay, so there's not this. There's a spoiler, so I don't want to mention that. But there's a big shocking scene, right? And the scene needed. All I say is that a certain character needed the special metal to sort out a problem. That's all I say. But that scene shocked me. But that scene's really well shot. Stuff with Lawrence Fishburne. Like in the car.
Yeah. Like the nocturnal scenes, there's moments with he's the chauffeur of Adam Driver's character. Yeah.
He Alfred effectively.
Yeah, and then he's also the narrator of the show because we have that and also points for him being in the show too, right? Because I love how things kind of come full circle. I think if I'm not mistaken, Lawrence's debut was Apocalypse Now. And he was real young. He was like a teenager, in that show.
He lied about teenage and things.
Yeah. So I like how things come full circle there, right? But yeah, those moments with him I thought were great. There's some really nice, nocturnal shots and whatnot, right? And I actually do like the fantastical vibe of the show as well, right? I like where he's going forward, right? Unfortunately, though, it also clashes with just purposefully artificial moments, right? Early on you would see like a sky, right? And you just see how the clouds move. Even if it's meant to be artificial, it just takes you out because it's like it don't fit with everything else around it. It's almost like it can't get a real like lock in terms of how the look of the world of the show itself is, right? Is it meant to be artificial or not, right? But my letdown with the letdown I had though is that if the show is supposed to be about the Roman Empire, or at least comparing the fall of the Roman Empire to the possible fall of America, why wasn't I seeing like Roman architecture and whatnot, right? There's like some instances, right, where they will mention Roman stuff. So like slight spoiler, in there's a moment at Madison Square Garden that's meant to be like the Colosseum, for example, and stuff like that. Like okay, but like I thought that there would have been more. Like I was expecting more like buildings with pillars and stuff like that, real Roman stuff now in the world itself, instead of just like taking pretty much 90% of New York and just saying it's called New Rome just because you just have 10%, which is just these ultra modern buildings, and statues and stuff like that. I was expecting more like a fusion of that old and new, but we didn't get that, right? It's almost like, all right, I want to save more money, so let me just shoot 90% of everything.
Right, that's another thing too. Like again, if a studio who could have control this and make it work a little better, what would have been interesting? And again, like this is somebody who's not a fan of studios, like how studios try to control people. You need to kind of run your own studio, blah blah blah. You get my point, right? But like the other, like this one scene where he's driving and you see the statues tearing itself down as symbolic to the city. Like I get it. Like you're telling me a message, right?
Yeah.
But and I'm watching this and I'm like, this is a pretty interesting visual. If this was like a tech demo or sizzle reel.
Or a music video or something.
Or music video. But because it clearly looking unfinished as a CG thing, it looking like shit. So it's not finished, but like if you're just telling me if it's just a tech demo sizzle behind the scenes to say, alright, it had a look like this, this kinda not really half finished, but kinda finished, but like make this look good and interesting, it could have worked. But none of it, so much of it feels unfinished though. And like it's a bunch of decent ideas that just don't gel together and don't come together in an interesting way. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
But yeah, for me, this leads to like the problem I have with it now, is just my expectations with the show, right? Because just off the gate, right? You want to compare, Fall of the Roman Empire to this, right? But really give him that like I thought that there would have been more parallels, right, to like events that happen in Roman history or something like that, right? But you don't really give him that, right? So okay, you give him a kind of a captivating enough story with Caesar, right? I actually do like the moments with him and Julia. I thought those moments were nice and whatnot, and how they grow as a couple and whatnot, and where it led, right? Where their arcs Endo was really really underwhelming for me, but I'll get to that near the end, right? But there was just all these moments though that just kind of come in and they try to gel together. It's meant to be world building, but it just kind of makes this whole story just even more overstuffed in my opinion, right? So case in point, right? Like the whole Madison Square Garden stuff, right? There is the inclusion of this singer, right? And apparently she is, well, in the world of New Rome, right? Apparently she is like this virgin, right? And they real sent it off like, oh my god, like in this world, oh my god, right? And then she has this performance, and just out of the blue, they just start bidding on her for what reason we don't really know. I'm not sure if that's meant to reflect the debauchery of Rome, but also to touch on and right. Once I see this, it will kind of make sense why this show is the way it is, right? It's clear, and this to me, just to kind of get to my overall point, right? This to me is the problem of holding on to an idea for so long. It really feels like he just put in all these subplots over years. Like it just feels like it's years and years of subplots that they put together, right? So that whole thing with the singer, right, feels like something out of the 2000s now, you know, like back in the days when artists like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera came out. It was like, oh, you know, they're supposed to be the girls next door and they're supposed to be all virginal and shit, so why are they singing about sex and blah blah. That's what he touched on there. And then where it leads now, not gonna spoil that, it's like, but this is like 2000s commentary, like why are we seeing this in a 2024 film, right? And overall it just feels like it's just all these ideas that he just stacking onto it, right? Just stacking onto each other to the point that, and here's the thing, and like I will confess, right, I was locked in there, like I said, I was making a joke of it prior to watching the film, right? I had my coffee, sat down, and I watching it, I taking in everything. I seen the insanity going on. I trying to make odd but there was a clear hand. There was a clear hand, throughout it, right? Even in that moment of the Madison Square Garden thing, there was a clear focus, right? But then somewhere right after that same shocking moment that you mentioned, right? Things just sort of fall apart. Things just don't make any sense. It just and for some odd reason, right? Because this movie is 2 hours and 14 minutes, right? The story just starts speeding up. It's just all these plot points just start moving really, really quickly, right? And then, characters just decide to do things out of the blue, and then, it just kind of ends, like, certain character arcs just sort of end weirdly, So, like, that scene with the bow and arrow, like, that's how they end a certain someone's arc. It's just, they're like, wait, what? What? And
that had me cracking up, man, because I was like so dutish.
Yeah, it's and like, am I supposed to laugh at this, or am I just supposed to be like, you see that person had it coming, you see, no, it was baffling, Dread. It was, and given who involved there, it was just pure cringe, right? But yeah, boy, and then to top it all off, just to wrap things off, right? That ending was just so rushed and then so preachy at the same time, Drake, because you have a monologue, but then, because it's Coppola and because of where, the mental level where he's at this point, he want to try to make this big statement about the world and all that kind of stuff. They're like, but this don't feel earned, because unfortunately characters are kind of sidestepped out, pushed aside, to kind of rush the story now. And then you get back to them, you just like wondering, well, how we get from here to there all of a sudden? And you just give me this monologue, and that's supposed to sum up everything. It just ended on this weird preachy note, and I'm not really sure why. I'm not really sure what the purpose of it. And unfortunately, I didn't really know what the real message was, right? Is it about, artistry and, holding on to your beliefs and whatnot? Or is it about trying to make the world a better place, but being mindful that there will always be people who try to bring it down? Or is it meant to be a warning about the possible fall of America if we, just become, if they fall into debauchery as well, right? Like, none of these things even come together very well, Dred, right? I'll close with one last moment, right? I had to mention this thing, right? Because, boy, again, this is decades of ideas you want to cram into a movie, right? After spoilers. So there's this subplot. This one of those, blink and you miss it subplot, right? Involving a satellite hovering over Earth, right?
Right. Yeah, this was nonsense.
And then out of the blue, they just decide, here's what, we don't even see it happen, right? In my head, I'm thinking, the satellite dropping alone. Can they say, the satellites hit the atmosphere, blah, 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 right? I seen meteors, right? So I don't know if it blew up or whatnot, right? But we're talking meteors, right? We're talking about like the shit that you see in like in a Roland Emmerich film, for example, right? Because surprise, surprise, the meteors heading down to Earth, right? But they're heading specifically in New Rome, which makes no sense to me, right? Not in other parts of the world, specifically in New Rome, right? And because this show relying a lot on symbolism or like all that kind of stuff, I did watching this like, okay, so this is Francis talking about the Ice Age here. Is this what he's trying to say? Like, eventually civilization will be wiped out, when we least expect it, then we have to rebuild. And I thinking, okay, that's what he's going for? Okay, like an Ice Age analogy, okay. But then you realize, but wait, no, but like it was no real damage to the city because, like, I think this mentioned a couple people get killed. And that was it. They just kind of move on as if nothing happened. Like everybody just sort of move on with it. Like, but like for the rest of the show, that moment don't even come up. It's just it just sort of happened just because. And I just did like, why? What? It makes no sense, right? But yeah, as a whole, just like you, Ricardo, I don't have it as a worst off for the year, boy. But I feel like the more I think about it, probably will be there. But out of respect for Coppola, and a part of me actually glad.
That's your problem right there.
Out of respect. The out of respect thing.
The out of respect bullshit. Sorry. I listen, it was the exact opposite effect for me. Not that I hated on Coppola exactly, but to this kind of stuff, this demystify, and I don't like, I'm sure I'm not utilizing this concept particularly well, but basically the whole auto theory, aspect of this whole thing now. And to me, just such a good, like, debunking of a lot of stuff in terms of like expertise and skill and glory and these kind of things. And this movie is a perfect example of that. I don't think this is like the objectively worst thing I ever watched or anything like that, but it's pretty bad. And it's because it's Coppola. I'm glad to see just this kind of stuff being, kind of in a sense being torn down in terms of like what creativity should be. Moving on.
No, but you're right, yes. But, look, at the end of the day, I admire and appreciate the fact that he got this film off of his chest. I felt, just in retrospect, that he should have found another medium to express these ideas, most of which really feel dated, in my opinion. But, and there are really great ideas here, right? Especially when it comes to how we look at art and how we look at, progress and, social progress and all these kind of things, right? And all that, right? But it's just all these ideas, and it really feels like decades of ideas stuffed into this 2 hour and 14-minute package to the point where I'm wondering if a director's cut even matters, right? Because, like, it really doesn't feel like it would really make a difference because it would just be more insanity for the sake of it, right? All these stuff that just meant to be avant-garde and weird, but they just don't even gel together or even, like, say anything or have something profound to really see, right? It's just a whole bunch of ideas and just a whole bunch of big names together trying to make sense of it all, right? And you would think that the person who wrote this thing and held on to this idea for decades and decades and decades would actually make something that justify the wait now, but ultimately it's just like, nah, I just want it to be that way because, I don't know, I just don't really care, right? I just want it to be this way because fuck you all, my name is Francis Ford Coppola, that's why, and that's how I really felt, right? But the problem, unfortunately, now is that if you were to compare this to his classic works, it don't even hold a candle, Dre. Like, this is not Apocalypse Now, this is not Godfather, this is not even, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which have a lot of style, right? And a lot of
Right.
people kind of say, a lot of style, but not that much substance. And I understand that criticism, right? But I still love that film, right? But still, from a man who known to be brave enough to make films like this, right? You would think that he would have had a much steadier hand. He would have been a little bit more aware of how the people, how the public will respond to this, instead of just saying, look, I just want this idea out and it has to be my way or the highway. No, that's not how you go about it, right? But I guess at the end of the day, we'll see how people respond to it in time. Maybe we will just talk shit about it now, and then like 10 years from now, when it comes out on the Criterion Collection, you'll be like, this actually was a masterpiece, and we just didn't even realize it at the time, right? But for now, somebody else should have been there. Somebody should have been with Francis and just really help him put these ideas together. Take out the fat. There's a lot of fat in this movie, by the way. A lot of moments that I understand they're there to kind of add to the wildness of the world, but they just kind of undermine the point of the show, the message of it, the heart of it, which I felt was, with Caesar and Julia. Like, I felt that was the core of the film itself,
Right.
their love affair, but it just had to go off the reels with all these subplots that ultimately don't really add up to anything, right? But yeah, for me at the moment, I will just give this a very, very, very light 2.5 out of 5. See it if you want to. If you're curious, see it, but know what you're getting yourself into. Sit down, take it in. If it's not for you, you could leave, right? But for me, I sat down, I was seeing all the weirdness, I was like, okay, that making no sense. And it's not like, because it's weird, it just it's not logical, it does not add to the story at all. It just feels, just slapdash in my opinion, right? That's the problem, right? But I was still there like, okay, I hear Francis. I want to see his idea come together. I want to see what he's trying to say. I want to see the message, right? But unfortunately, boy, after that same moment that you mentioned, that whole shocking moment thing, he just decided to just rush the rest of the story, and it just sort of undermined everything. So it just ultimately just kind of ends like, yep, time run out, so that's it, the end. Hope you love my movie, blah, and he just runs away. No, man, come on, he could do much better than that, right? But yeah,
That's it,
this
that's
is.
it. But you see, again, he's so old now that as I say, as CC put it, he have no more fucks to give.
I know,
That's the problem. Yeah.
and this one last point I want to make. I don't want to say that age is the reason why he makes something like this. Like, oh, he get dementia, so he making all these weird calls when it comes to his narrative in this film. It's not like that, It's just, again, somebody should have just sat with him and just be like, nah, you could do this better. Nah, tweak this. Nah, take this out. Something like that. And he could still have his weird abstract vision, but it was just all these ideas, and it just all reek of, this is me, and I don't want nobody touching this. I don't want nobody telling me what to say and what to do. It's all me, and that's the unfortunate thing about it, right? So, yeah, I just conflicted by this right now, as you can tell. I just really conflicted by this, right? But for me, this is a noble failure, boy. You know what I mean? Like I get I see the passion and the intended purpose of it, though. But ultimately, it's just like, nah, but if you could have just you could have just used another medium to tell this story, right? Like a limited series or something, right? I don't know, something on HBO. People would have kill out themselves to watch what an HBO limited series from Coppola. Hell yeah, we're gonna watch that, right? As a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, nah, man, it's, we could have gotten more, but then would more make the film better? We don't know, and honestly, I don't think so, right? So it's just one of those weird examples where you get what you get, but you still come out of it like, nah, man, this could have been way, way, way better than how it was hyped up to be, right? For better or for worse. Yeah, Ricardo, your final thoughts, written.
Yeah, written. Yes, I'll get us a low score. It's like a 3 out of 10 or whatever it is. But it's not that it wasn't unnecessary. It's one of those things that just, to me, this just feel like a product of pure ego. In all the, in a right sense, but like in some pretty bad ways too. Like, it's like, oh, you really, really needed to get this thing done, no matter what kind of thing. And again, from an artistic standpoint, I appreciate that. Like, as I said, never have I hated something more than, but I also appreciate its existence. Like, all right, well, you gotta get it done, and I could see people defending it and blah blah blah. But like, for the most part, yeah, this is a mess, and just don't work. And so little of it just don't come together. Almost none of it comes together in any meaningful sense to say something that we haven't seen before or do before or anything like that. So that is about it for me.